Hello world! Patricia O'Connor and Frida Reba Darcy. On the bonsai balcony, I've got a very attentive Frida Reba Darcy. Oh, here you go. Oh, yeah. Per diem. Today on the bonsai balcony, it is a beautiful, look how deep that blue goes. It is a gorgeous day in Alameda. It's Sunday. Oliver, it's warm. It's quite warm out today. T-shirt weather. And we're going to do a little balcony tour. It's probably been about a dozen shows since we've done a balcony tour. They're easy, they're popular. Everybody has their favorite tree, and so we just go right on down the line and do a little catch up. And there is quite a bit to talk about in this show, because we've, over the last month or so, we've been involved with quite a bit. So we'll just kind of get started right here. I have uncovered, and we can see there's all kinds of roots going on in there. I don't see, this is, okay, what are we looking at here? This is our maple. It is a trident maple. We've gotten a lot of girth out of our base this year. You can see this bark cracking here is from our massive spread happening there. There are all kind of roots going on inside here, but I pulled the black off. I think the black is necessary to keep the roots from getting exposed to ultraviolet light, which knocks them back. This tree has not begun to bud out yet. All's well. It's not true. There's a little bud there, just starting to bud out. Maybe a little in a few places, but not really overly so. We're still waiting, but all's well. And when we get all of this stuff, this root mound, we'll give this guy a chop right in here somewhere. That'll be our new soil line on the tree. That'll be our base on the nabari. And what I also think that I will probably end up doing with this tree is bringing every one of these trunks down some. This is this long. I would bring it down. This one I would bring down to here. There's branches on the back side. I would bring it down to this level. Cut off that. This one, same deal. I would cut off this. Cut it right here, and that would be that level. The back one, when we got a sprout, this idea is 2 or 3 years in the making, because this little branch is 2 years old. And whenever I saw something come out there, I went, yeah, that'll be the thing that I can cut the top off, because I think all of those are a little too elongated. I would, while we're bringing the tree down to this height, I would like to go and bring it down to that height. And that's kind of, oh yeah, and there are all kind of buds over in here. It's just a matter if you look in the right places. There's still buds going there too. So we're still waiting on the trident maple. It's doing well. It's making roots. This is my first air layer, and it's going okay. This is one of our first acquisitions. This is a Chinese wisteria, and it blooms blue. We saw it bloom last year for the first time, and it's still super dormant. It's still just hanging out. This part, which was in the picture when I bought it even, is dead. This has been a deadwood feature the 3 years that I've had this. This is also the tree that I learned about overpotting. I didn't learn in time to not overpot. This is a several $100 glazed pot and a not several $100 bonsai tree. So, yeah, this could have been a development tree. That was probably mistake one. I thought I was going to have those two grow together and be fabulous. And for the first time when it bloomed last year, I kind of saw my original idea. It looked pretty okay with those long cascading blue wisteria blooms, and it was very fragrant. But this tree doesn't give the impression of age or anything. It doesn't look like, I've got a long way to go on that. It's lessons that we learn. Next is our Pondo. This is a big Yamadori Ponderosa. I have it tilted on in. I like the way it drains better. It drains better, faster when I do that. I'm not crazy about the substrate that's in here because it's original substrate. It's not, which is not a reflection on the grower. I want to point that out, on the collector. When you collect a tree, you don't strip it bare of all of its soil. You do that in stages, and it still has part of its original root mass. It's an original soil, and in 2 or 3 pottings to remove all of that. And we're at some stage of that. We've also got our, I think I'm showing you that we have our grafts going there. You can see several failed grafts, but I've got one right in there that's a green graft that's doing really well. We're about a little over 2 weeks away from throwing this in the back of a car and going to Auburn, California, and having Bonsai Master Instructor Gardener Peter T will give us about several more grafts, 2 or 3 more grafts on that guy, and to go with the one that we have going now. And any of those take, we will be off to the races. I will be fine with whatever we get out of that, providing we get at least one. This brings us to our oak. This is our California coastal oak. You are seeing the backside of this oak. I could turn this around now. In fact, this would be a time to turn this tree around. Let's just do that. I took a tip from one of our viewers, and on paydays, I rotate the trees that I rotate them on paydays. Some trees I don't rotate because they're so one-sided. They're kind of one-sided. Their fronts face a certain way, and if you turn it around, it's got its back to the light. Just depending, like you wouldn't want to take a windswept tree and turn it to where it was faced the opposite way to where the backside of all of its leaves were on it. Okay, now that's the front of our coastal oak. And it has, I'm expecting to start, yeah, there it is. I can't believe I don't see any tiny little buds on here. The smallest ones. What I normally notice when this guy starts budding out is I normally notice a really day glow bright pink. There's a tiny little bud there. First one I've seen this year. Yeah, there's these little bright red, I call it salmon red or pink, tiny little buds that come out on this guy, and they are very, they're very noticeable. You tend to see those little specks and I am expecting to see those. I'm expecting to see those any time now. A couple of years ago, say 2 years ago, this tree got something that was hellaciously bad, and my go-to was I would see, and what I'm saying is hellaciously bad, whole limbs that were like big around and stuff would turn black, dead in a day, and you would see a line moving down a limb that wasn't there the day before, and we would cut it back to living tissue and then see the next day that line had marched, and we would then cut off another big huge block. It was like amputating sick limbs and just absolutely getting creeped out by what that was doing to our tree. That is when I also learned a couple of things. One, I never figured out what that was, but I did learn about systemic treatments. And I also learned that Sometimes your trees take ill, and the major thing that you can do to keep your trees from getting ill is to keep them healthy, keep them in an energy positive state. A tree that's been weakened invites predators. There's even a tree that's in a weakened state invites predators. On a biological level, some trees will actually attract their own predators, and those predators will eat off part of the tree that would have eventually killed them. Seems kind of weird, but you can see that happening where termites will have infected some juniper out in the middle of the desert, and that termite infestation came and went over 2 years and prolonged the life of this thousands of year old tree. Instead of it just completely dying, they fed off the part of it that was sick, kind of a thing. So a healthy tree is the number one thing you can do to keep away a lot of the things that will keep us healthy. And a lot of ways to keep a tree healthy is don't suck the energy out of a tree that seems to, like, if you cut back a tree and it responds well and does stuff, don't just go, wow, that's the neatest trick in the world, and keep doing that. I'm pointing at this guy because I did something similar to that, and I just about 3 years ago, and now we've got like some huge amount of huge growth that's going to be hard to clean up and all this other stuff because I'm just trying to let the tree recover from where I caused it all of its energy. What I learned about doing that and not allowing that to happen has been very helpful in these trees. We'll get to this guy in a minute. So I learned about prevention, and I learned about feeding. I would say on this guy's watch. Okay, so in the last year, I started putting some more. The amount of grow back that we've gotten on this tree has allowed me to practice what I've been preaching when it comes to pruning techniques. For ramification, we've been turning our ones into twos, our twos into fours, and kind of like the same thing I mentioned on one of my on my other oak, my cork bark oak, that I had been pruning everything back really small and then getting twos and then pruning those back really small, and that just makes everything super thick. So last year I went, hey, let's start growing some of this stuff out longer and experiment and see how we like that. That might be something that and so that's why after we did our fall prune, these guys were left out longer. And I think that's probably a better design method. I'm just figuring out how to design them. First thing I had to learn was how to get these guys to back bud and how to get these guys to flush out. And what I really had to learn that on was this one. This one was on its back foot when I got it. It was weak, it was water deprived, and it wasn't getting fed, but it was also making tiny, tiny, tiny little leaves. I think they had used a method of kind of keeping it on its back foot a little bit, and it made tiny little pill-sized, almost olive tree looking little pill leaves. And after I started watering and feeding and cut back the dead growth, it started growing just like a weed. So I'm kind of skipping around here. But what I learned about how to ramify this tree, I was able to put to this. And what it is that I learned is when oaks grow branches, they will grow them really, really long. They'll just get way out of, in the course of a summer. And as it continues to grow, the distance from here to here, these are nodes, and the distance between the nodes will elongate. What I learned last summer about that is pinching the ends heads off a lot of that elongation. I'd always thought it was kind of a trade-off. Some people clip, some people pinch, and I just thought that but no, pinching is actually a method where you just get the end and take that off, and that release of oxygen right there, because the oak limbs can make their emphasis be on their ends on their taller, on their height, and things behind them can and will die back. So you end up with a really long limb with really long stretched out nodes in between them. And then less growth in here where you need it, where you want to show off. Maybe you didn't want the tree coming way out here. So clipping your ends back causes things to vibricate off. Feeding causes the plant to accelerate and back bud faster. They're water tolerant and water hardy, but watering the tree will not cause it to overgrow. Watering the tree will cause it to be healthy, and the more you feed and the more you water, the healthier it gets. When this tree is totally in what we call my finished state, sure, I'll back off the fertilizer, and sure, I might cut down on the water in a little bit, but right now we're producing lumber to replace all the stuff that we've lost 3 years ago. And to that end, I've learned an awful lot about how to get this guy, and just clipping the ends and feeding and watering it went a long way towards getting these guys to happily build the lumber that you want back in. Then what I do is I'll let it grow everything that it's going to grow. I don't play you stay, you go, you stay, you go. As stuff grows out, I'll let it all come out. I'll let it all make leaves. I'll let it all photosynthesize. I'll let it take all that energy and put it back into the roots. Then in the winter when it slows down, see, this is an evergreen, so I can't say in the winter when it loses its leaves, but in the winter when it goes dormant or when it slows down, then I come back and I prune back to my choices. That's when I cut the stuff that's going straight up, straight down, straight back, or straight at me, and leave all the stuff with the motion and start cutting back for vibrication and all that good stuff. That's our quick lesson on our oak, on our California oak. Next to it is this ponderosa. This is another good reason for this catch-up. Since our last catch-up, I have repotted this ponderosa. This is the Yamadori ponderosa. It is over 20 years old. It was collected at a very high elevation in Deadwood, South Dakota, same neighborhood that this one came from. And I just repotted it and threw a little bit more wire and put a little bit more motion to it. It seems to be doing well. Also, last year I overwintered this tree by putting it in the freezer with the door open. I would wait till we had a cold day of 40s. Here in Alameda is about as cold as we're going to see, the lower 40s. So about say 8 or 9 o'clock at night when it was low 40s, I would take the tree and put it in the refrigerator, the bottom part of the refrigerator, with a towel wrapped around the pot to keep the ceramic from just hard freezing, a little insulation, a little air insulator between it and the. So that would be like sitting on top of the vegetable crisper in the bottom of the refrigerator part. Then later at night, before I turn in, just before we set the alarm and hit the hay, I would take it from there to the top part of the freezer section. But I also had an ice pack in there, and I would put an ice pack in the crack of the door so the door wouldn't completely close. So the freezer compartment would be a little bit open. There would be an exchange of atmosphere. That way it wouldn't be sealed up, like vacuum sealed in there. And it wouldn't go down to its at most coldest. It would stay at the high 20s, low 30s. 8 hours later, when my alarm went up, I would pop up out of bed, throw that guy back in the refrigerator section for its warming, where it would go from the 30s to the 40s again, and then before I left for work, I'd pop it back out on here where it was going from the 40s back up to our high 40 day. And doing that, I think I was able to overwinter this tree nicely. We'll do that again next year, and at some point I may even look at grafting the way I've done this one. It certainly is a nice way to get smaller needles, is to change the needle type. Other than that, a Shohin ponderosa will likely never have needles that are small enough to be convincing. And that's kind of what I would say for the rest of these. And the rest of these, we'll just move right along. This one, this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy, and this guy, those are all ponderosas. Those are all ponderosas that we bought last year, and that we put in these, we folded them up, we wrap them up with wire, and then wrap them around chopsticks. Much like we wrap them in wire, we wrap the trees around chopsticks and got these curls and cues, and these exposed roots were where I laid. They came to me in plugs. They weren't in pots. I ordered 10, and when they came to me in plugs, I basically laid those plugs down on top of the pot, exposed some roots at the bottom that I planted, and we made exposed roots out of those plugs. And I would kind of tear it up a little bit, not tear it up as in break it, but I would kind of tease it a little bit with a chopstick so that they wouldn't retain the cube shape. It was almost like they were grown in an ice tray or something. So when they came out of that, they were all the root bases. Those cubes were those root bases were all in the shape of what their container had been. This is our 20-year from seed Japanese black pine. It is doing nicely. It still looks a little bit of its winter color, but its top is starting to green in. Be a good time to go through and clean out some third-year needles. But the tree is doing really good. I'm really happy with it. We've had really good luck with this tree. It is an acquisition that we got about 3 years ago. So far, I haven't been thrown any curves with this. We've been feeding it like we're supposed to. We've been doing our candles like we're supposed to, and it's just been doing really well. Oh yeah, I could also do our little rotation here. All right. Now, when we look at the base of this tree, we've got this nice base right in here. And then it fans the nabari, the trunk, fans out into this huge, nice base. This was root mass. This is all the root mass. This is what pine trees do. Their roots will get bark and can become part of the tree and become exposed and become a very neat part of the tree. And that's what I was taught by the guy who sold me this tree. He said, Pat, work on your roots early. Get motion coming out of the ground and work on those roots early. And those roots were fanned out early on to make that shape, and then kind of laid on top of a bed of some substrate or muck or peat moss. I wasn't there 20 years ago when he did it, but those were fanned out. This was built. Pine tree bonsais are built, and this one was nicely made by Jonas Dubois. It's a quick look at our Japanese black pine seedlings. I popped those in the kitchen. They are fun to do. They are easy to do. They will embolden you to do brave things with pine trees, and you can secure in the knowledge that you've got backup should it not go well. I'm not into just twisting things to see if I can what it takes to kill a tree. But we've had some really good successes with some of these trees, and I owe a lot of that to the part where I have grown them tens at a time. Both of those two trays of little Japanese black pine started off as a Ziploc baggie of Japanese black pine seeds that I got on Facebook auctions. I'm no longer on Facebook. I would say my friends probably need to find me on Blue Sky if they're interested. And here's another ponderosa. This one being a part of this original batch. 2, 4, 6, 7. I think that means I've lost 2 ponderosas out of 7, 10. 3. We lost 3 of these. I killed one by folding it too hard. I killed another with bad wiring, and I lost one to the heat. Yeah, that was a pretty good recall on that. The ponderosas are just about as bendable as the Japanese black pines, slightly less so. They are slightly less forgiving about that. If you've got any cracks or something that you put in those, I'm a lot more diligent about going back and putting cut paste on that than I am my Japanese black pines. But yeah, again, buying trees 10 at a time is a great way. If you have one tree, if you have one pine tree, and you're just spending too much time looking at it going, does it look good? Does it look bad? I don't know. Does it, does it need something? I don't know. Does it? But if you have 10 of them and you look down at that tray of 10 and you go, well, they all look good except this one, or they all look really green except this one. That's a 9-to-1, and that's probably not as much on you. So you don't go do it, maybe you'll just switch places with that tree with another and see what that does. Then that'll tell you right off. Was it getting less water? Was it getting too much water? Is it getting flagged off by the other trees? And a lot of times just doing a little rearranging will cause that slow one to pick right up. And then you just keep doing that so that you don't really screw over any one tree. I need to go back through my Japanese black pine here. This one is 75 years old. It is a cork bark Japanese black pine. I'm gonna try to get up in there. Yeah, no, that's just a black tree, isn't it? We're gonna get in there. Yeah. This one has been with us a few years. I had an issue with this tree a couple of years ago. It scared me to death. I really thought I lost this tree. And it also needs weeding. Need to get in there and weed it. But this is a very happy cork bark Japanese black pine. It is, I got it when it was 75 years old. So it's going on 80. It's not probably quite 80 yet, but it will not be that long. It'll be an 80-year-old cork bark Japanese black pine. These are finicky. I had an issue with this tree a couple of years ago. I'm not exactly sure which mistake I made, but I learned about feeding, and I learned about systemic treatment. Oh yeah, I do remember the cause and effect to this. Drip trays. I brought all my trees in off the balcony so I could do some construction work for an afternoon, and when I brought the trees back out, I set this tree in a drip tray that had a tiny amount of water in it, but given the size of the tree, that water level rose and killed the bottom layer of roots, a layer about that thick, which then clogged the pot, and the tree turned yellow and red and was just like, it's dying. It's dying. I don't know what's wrong with it, but it's dying. And I kind of debated back and forth. I do believe in emergency repots. I also don't believe in emergency repots. You've kind of heard me talk about that in the past. It's most of the time what we call emergency repots can be handled if we know what's up and we do some other things. We amend our watering, or maybe we scrape the side of the pot, or maybe we punch little aeration holes in the top. There are other things we can do besides emergency repot. And when I thought the tree was probably already dead, I went, let's go in there and see if there's anything we can do. And when I got in there, I saw this much of the roots being dead on the bottom, and I went, I absolutely see what happened to this tree now. And I cut it loose, put it in some fresh substrate, and noticed that the tree was turning around within 2 days, maybe 1 day. It was amazing. I knew that I had affected a very, very helpful repair or rescue within 48 hours. I was very much surprised. And at the time, I actually thought that I'd probably already killed the tree. So that's got us there. That's got us there. A couple of weeks ago, we did a show where I started making tubes out of netting, and then we planted some Japanese black pines in those over colanders or over a terracotta pot. That's one of them. That's the other. I don't have a great angle on those guys yet. This being one of them, this one's doing pretty good. Those roots are going to continue to grow all the way down there, and then we can fan those out, or we can twist them, or we can do all kinds of great things to that. And to that end, this tree seems to be doing really well. Its counterpart, this one, we'll call that this one. This was the first one I did. It's in a terracotta pot. I was concerned about how much that might tip over, so I basically tied it to the mast like a prisoner. I have a gap in the substrate in here that I kept poking my skewers down there, trying to fill that gap. And finally I was like, I don't know that I'm going to chop up all the roots if I don't keep doing that, if I don't stop doing that. So I stopped. And I shouldn't have. This tree looks like it's on its way out to me. We'll keep watering it, we'll keep seeing it, but I'm looking at all of these gaps and all these ear holes in my substrate and seeing where I didn't do that right. And I wondered at the time if I would see more problems by leaving that gap in there, or if I was going to see more problems by taking a skewer and just agitating, poking down in there way too much. And I think that's my answer. I think I'll probably wreck this one. This isn't picking up on camera, but there's exposed roots down there and an air gap where all of this clogged up, but then didn't pass through those roots. I could have done that better. I could have maybe laid the tree on its side, laid this net out flat, loaded it with substrate, and then rolled it up like a cigar. That way I would have had even root and perlite distribution through there. There's probably several other things I could have done other than the way that I did that. It was kind of when I was going through that, I was going, I wonder if that's going to cause the. Yep, it did. So there's more to go on this. We will do more of these. Hope it kind of gets over itself and pulls through. We're not completely done yet, but yeah. The other one, I think it's doing absolutely fine. That little trunk has got a nice little spiral to it. And these little guys down here, I think are doing absolutely, oh yeah, look at that. We've got some exposed roots there. We've got this trunk twisted up. Those needles are so long, they almost look ponderosa-like, but they're not. This is the first year for them. They have not begun this tree hasn't just begun first year in its candle works. So you can see those two little buds sticking out there proud were where we cut back we selected down to those two. And yeah, this is the little pot I got from Bonsai. It's really thick and I like it. It's got kind of air bubbles in it. It reminds me of a German Krock beer stein or something. It's kind of cool looking. This guy, what I learned from this guy has been in this pot a long time. I overpotted this little tree to see what it would do, and what it does is grow very, very slowly. It's fine, it's happy, it's doing okay, but I think if you overpot a tree thinking that it'll quickly fill the space, it doesn't always. Sometimes it just gives it room to just sit down and take it easy, and that seems to be what it's doing. I've got also the motion in that seems to be coming along. I'll be happier when that stuff starts swelling up and kind of closing and fusing more. Right now it looks a little like an infinity emblem, but that's okay. Let's talk about our Japanese black pond. We did Saturday Night Live Bonsai until late last night. It wasn't too late, but I always stay up kind of late after I do those. It's very invigorating to do a live show on Saturday night. I understand why the casting crew at Saturday Night Live always did the after party, because it's not a good time to stop by the pharmacy on the way home and then put on your slippers and go to bed. You kind of feel like, yeah, let's do something. Last night we put some pretty hard motion in this guy. Let's see. And we are none the worse for wear. It's ready to be watered. And we got a bend in it going back this way, and then I increased the bend coming back this way, and then I increased the bend back that way, so that our apex got back to its pretty much original position of there about level. Pretty happy with that. This tree is very flexible. I had this guy, you can go back and look on the Saturday, click on the live section of our of our shows, and you will see last night, Saturday Night Live Bonsai, I have this guy laid over, one hand on the pot to keep it flat, and the other hand grabbing it up here on a pry bar, and I just pulled that guy right on back. And I would watch to see if any of these places in the bark started to open up. That would have been exciting. That would have told me where it is it's going to open up when it's been bent so much that it'll open up. And that would also tell me where to watch and what to watch for. We didn't even get that far. This thing is even though I had this guy bent over something like, well, not exaggerating, more like that. And I would say that this tree just took that in stride like it was nothing, like the wind was doing that. And I kind of wanted this to hook. And in order to do that, I have to get a tool that grabs it like this and do one of those, or I have to let it go. But I think we could definitely do that if I had the right piece of gear. All right, so that's got us that guy. This is my original bonsai. This stick started everything. This is the Japanese wisteria. It blooms white. I think it's beautiful. I think it makes the most fragrant, huge flowers every year. Other than that, it is a stick in a cheap bonsai pot, which I like. I like this little round bonsai pot. I think it's very attractive and goes well with the white flowers. First bonsai. That's what this has got going. If it weren't my first bonsai, I probably would have given this away by now. But first bonsai. So there you go. There's only one first. Actually, this isn't first bonsai. I was into bonsai when I was a kid, and then discovered girls and summer activities and forgot all about bonsai for about 4 years. I'm back. These are Japanese black pines that we twisted, folded, and mutilated in the last 2 years. We've made a lot. We've lost some. We've also had some pretty good successes. This little guy right here, this is my smallest pine tree. And this is our smallest little bean, mame. And this guy has always been very, 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 very energetic. I need to do a little bud selection. It's a little hard to see the tree in there. It's so happy. Might be up for a repot this summer also. This was one of our original success stories. That trunk has just swollen up all around those bars, which it has eaten. I'm not going in after them. Here's the other side. You can still see the motion that we put in there. A little bit of our third year needle. I'm thinking that's third year needles and heat damage, both. But the tree is happy. The tree is healthy. We've done our candles this year. Can probably go back through there and do a little cut back on that, a little bud selection and prune that back. It's getting a little long. But I love this little Japanese black pine. And this guy is in one of Elizabeth Crutenden's. She's in the UK. And I have really a fortunate person to have her pots available to us. That's been one thing that's really made us look good. Is Elizabeth has really gone a long way towards making us look good. This is another little pot that I got from Eric Schrey, and his place is called Bonsai. The last 2 years we've lost a couple of bonsai businesses. That happens. It's a never growing process. But Bonsai is out there, and I think probably going strong. As is Jonas at Bonsai tonight. This is the tree I'm homing in on here. Let me see. I know we're not going to show you everybody in here. I'm going to do this. I got a better hold. And then, so I pack that around. Those are exposed roots underneath that mound of peat moss. This is the backside. It's sticking up on what used to be its plug. And you can see that those exposed roots are coming out of that plug. It's standing up on its roots. You kind of see it kind of bobble-headed a little. Those are its exposed roots holding it up. And more, that old plug will fall away. And more, it has roots down in here that are doing great things. And this guy has responded to all that wiring and all that repotting by just putting out tons of stuff. It's just, wow, look at all of that. And I got a little weenie skewer stuck through there for support. I did that when I potted it up. If when you pot it up, I try to stabilize everything as much as possible. Any bump, any movement, and if you don't have that tree wired down, you're moving the roots. And if you're moving the roots, you're killing it. So yeah, both things. I always wire down my trees. Sometimes when I know that they're in there solid and I worry about a wire crossing over and leaving a scar on my roots, once I know they're solid, I might go in there and cut them loose. I've done that to my oaks and I've done that to my ponderosas. But after I repot them, I always clamp them down good until they squeeze themselves into their pots. That's a little look at two trees that I absolutely accidentally started. I put two seeds in the same cup and they started and they've always been there. Except last year I put them in that little, that is a little peanut-sized pot, but it's a little deep for most mame. So I decided to put the twins in there and we'll just let them hang out and see how long we can let that roll. So that's kind of got us on our mames. Japanese black, all of these are Japanese black pines. I have gotten so much enjoyment out of wrapping and folding and bending Japanese black pines. What I did last night to this, I did with confidence because of what I learned turning these little guys into what I call circus animals. I have a name for my style because I'm an artist. I mean, why not? I have a name for my style and I call it Cheerio. I'm saying that I fold these little trees into Cheerios. And yeah, I copying somebody who is, well, several people, and they're in Japan. Hilma at Bonsai Q and Kimi at Kimi Bonsai. They both, I watched their videos, and that's kind of where I got the trick. Although they did it in a more traditional method, they would use needle. I would learn to use really tiny needle nose pliers and stuff to do this. But the part where I take a straight tree and wrap a wire around it, and then I take a chopstick and take that straight tree and then wrap it around that chopstick until the tree is a spring, just like what I did to the wires, what I then do to the tree. And then I pull out the chopstick and I've got something that's predictably a coiled up spring. That in itself wouldn't be all of that. But then we start manipulating those coils. We open up some and turn them into right and left bends. We turn some down to cascade down or maybe back up, and we can get canyon trees. One of my first ventures in bonsai, I learned early. I was watching Peter Hahn in the English channel, and Heron's Bonsai, and he was talking about that forests are some of the easiest bonsais to make, and they're kind of like almost in that way. And you kind of got the idea that it was a training wheel exercise, a good way to get into bonsai without having to have the most fabulous trees in the world. And even though it's considered like the most tasty by the most amateurs, he pointed out that at a public display where you see the public being exposed to bonsai for the first time in a park or a sidewalk or a festival or something, that the forests tend to get the most attention, and the forests tend to draw the most crowds. And when it comes to forests, there's an old rule that I believe was derived from the same thing that you would have in flower decorating. In a flower decoration, you're going to have one main, iris or lily or something really big, and then on either side of that, you would have an even number of other things. And and if you had something white and powerful in the center, or something blue or yellow and powerful in the center, then the other colors would be smaller, and they would be even on either side of that arrangement. And you would see, the powerful color, a complementary color, the same complementary color, second complementary color, the second complementary color again. And that way, you're going to have an even number of pieces on either side of your main, which gives us an odd number. So the rule of thumb is that you're supposed to build a forest with an odd number of trees. Does that mean you rebuild your forest if you build it with an odd number of trees and one dies? Well, maybe. Or maybe don't worry about it. Peter also pointed out that anything over 7, your brain cannot decipher whether it's even or odd without laying fingers upon pieces and counting. You can't just, like the, I'm dating myself, like the old movie Rain Man. Somebody dumped out 100 toothpicks, and he looked down and went 96 toothpicks. And his brother went, "You're a dumbass. It clearly says on the box 100 toothpicks." And the waitress goes, "No, he's right. There's 4 laying here. 4 on the counter." So some people can look at something and instinctively know that's 4. With human beings, about 5 or 6, that's about 7 is about our limitation to what we can glance at and go 7. Crows can do 5. They've proven that a crow will wait until 5 people leave a cornfield before it goes in. So it looks at groups of something and knows that it's up to 5. So for that reason, whenever we make forests, we tend to do them in odd numbers. It's also not a bad idea to, I'm shooting through our Dawn Redwood to show you the trident maple. To show my Kodahan maples. It's also not a bad idea to go with your not best trees. You have trees that by themselves look like specimen trees, and they've got some things about them that you really, really, really like. Bonsai nurseries who will make forests tend to throw their ugly trees off to the side because those make beautiful forests. You take a tree and you look at it and you go, this way, it doesn't look so good, but if I turn it this way, that looks good. So I'll plant that one this way. And then you take the tree that's going to be next to it and you look at that. And by doing that, you'll get something that looks really good from your viewing angle. You also want to try to consider, when you're going to make a forest, where are you seeing this from? Are you seeing this from your car window as you go down the highway? That's going to affect your forest perspective. Are you seeing this as a person who is standing at the edge of the forest? That would be a different perspective also. Whether you have it tight or whether you have it a little bit more spaced out, that's all to be considered. I have seen people grow multi-species forest. I would discourage that for all but the most seasoned veterans. That becomes an art form in itself, getting 2 trees that aren't the same species to coexist and complement one another without any one particular part of them getting too big, getting too small, doing things you would have never thought of until you got in there and started trying to do that. So I would recommend going with the same species. It would also be cool. There's different ways of doing forests. Here's the way I did this one. About 20 trees, threw 2 off to the side. These were all planted in cups of cinder, and when I pulled them out of that, those root balls were all still cup shaped. I took 4 of them because it wasn't really planting season. I wanted to make this as a slip pot. So I took 3 or 4 of them, put them in my hand at the same time, and kind of mangled those square shapes into a less square shape, and then kind of mangled it a little bit more until I didn't have 4 trees in a line, and then I would pluck those down and grab another 4 and do the same. I did that while at the same time having a high mound in the center, and then I kind of wired them down the first year. Now every year, or not every couple of years, when I go through, I lift this thing up, the whole tree mound up in a mat, as if it were a doormat. I tease the bottom, I cut back the roots, I put down new fresh substrate, and I drop that mat down there just like it is. That is such an easy way to do these. I cannot say how easy that is. Time will make these better and better and better trees. Mistake I made, these were all first year seedlings when I planted them. They were all exactly the same size. A couple of years down the line, we're already able to see some diversity that's kind of working out into our favor. You can also go nuts in your design with these. I've seen people lay out a schematic and then number every tree. Think about every position, draw it out, lay out the pot, lay out a grid out of wire every tree into that position as it was displayed on their grid, and then grow that. I have also seen people take a baking dish and set it underneath a maple tree with some substrate in it, and when all of those little seeds that look like helicopters when they fall, because they got little petals on them. When that pie tin had a dozen or so of those laying on the top, they brought it in and watered them, and as those trees sprouted, that was their forest. So you can go all out, or you can do nothing at all. And whether you get a fantastic forest or whether or not you get a less convincing forest, kind of comes down to how much time you give it and how good you are at your game and rolling with the forest that you've started. So these guys have got some hellacious exposed roots. That wasn't because of my doing. They have risen up in the pot as they've grown, and the substrate has fallen away as I've watered, and we're going to go with that. Those things in another couple of years will probably fuse into some hellacious bases, and I wouldn't have known how to do that if I wanted to. And I say that because I don't mind that at all. That's a happy little accident. And there are also another lesson in overpotting so-so trees. That was 19. Maple, Kodahan maple, because they have those tiny, tiny, tiny little leaves. In the pot, it's a Japanese tokonoma pot. So again, that's a pretty big deal pot with some Kodahan maple seedlings. Yeah, don't do as I do always. Sometimes do as I say. Don't overpot your trees, folks. That's an amateur thing to do, and that was my amateur move. This would be an awesome, awesome pot for this when this gets going. Maybe a little smaller, but yeah, that was where I overpotted those. But still in all, we're going to get the forest out of this that we have the patience to build, and we're pretty far along. I've lost a couple, replaced a couple. One came up volunteer and then died last year. So our numbers on this thing is ever evolving. Brings us to the tree that's been in the shot. This is my dawn redwood. This dawn redwood was one of my first trees I set around right after the Christmas holidays, the first year that I got back into bonsai, that I wanted a true bonsai in a true bonsai pot, and not a clone that I'd stuck in a bonsai pot, but something that was under the heading bonsai pot that I myself could buy and start growing. And I went to a bonsai site on Google and bought this tree. It was they probably had a Christmas tree thing going at that time, because it could have also. But truthfully, I typed in California redwood and saw this tree and bought it. It's not a California redwood, it's a dawn redwood, but mistakes made while you wait. I originally thought this tree had a straight chop right here, like they had sawed it off just prior to putting it in the box. I mean, it was a really fresh. The tree itself looked like a broomstick with some dynamite-looking foliage, and the dynamite-looking foliage had been bent and folded and wired and combed over in front of that trunk chop. I knew when I bought this thing, I went, that's the dynamite-looking tree in a box. I bet when it comes here, you're going to see that you got taken somehow, or we're going to find out where they get you when it comes to bonsai. And where they got me was that little flat broomstick. Meant that I got to be the one to do this carving and pull all of this down into a dead feature. That was actually pretty encouraging. I thought that right away we had done something. And I thought about how long it would take to make this tree into the tree I wanted as a formal upright, and made a snap decision that I would make this a cathedral. So I would let a lot of the branches that I saw around here make multiple tops. A year after that, I saw how far and how fast this tree had come along, and I went, I wish I would have stuck to my guns and had this thing, and I carved that like I did, but then just had one leader and allowed that to wrap around the carved part of the tree. I wish that I would have, instead of a cathedral, made it a formal upright. So I decided to do a styling change about 8 months after I did my initial styling. And that was the lesson I learned about robbing a tree of its energy when it shows you that it has an abundance of energy, that you get cocky. I spent the last 3 years trying to get this guy to put out enough branches where I can build something else out of it. And so far, the only way we've been able to do that is allow this run, which is huge and bulbous and got too much stuff on it, but it was the only thing that was growing, to do this, which can be a leader. And this guy, which was the same, all of this needs to be cut back, but we're not getting the branches we need. And I would love to see something farther down here. And yeah, the tree can do that. It can put out branches through bark. But when you take a tree that has a lot of energy and you start getting reckless with that energy, maybe you're at a stage in the game where you don't know you're being reckless with that energy, but you only get so many restyles on the amount of energy that it has down there in the roots. And at some point, it decided it had enough, and it died back. It died back for the summer until the following spring when it flushed back out. Right after that, we were already kind of on our back foot. We got powdery mildew, and this tree will hold its color when every frond is dead. It was looking. I was looking right at it, and I went, it looks a little pale. And I touched the limb, and it went ping, and jettisoned off, kind of like when you do these. And I went, that was dead. And then everything. With 2 minutes later, it had totally dehydrated every frond and retained its color. So it was gone. All the foliage was gone before I even knew it. Defoliated the tree, it bounced back some, 90-degree heat, boom, that's it till next year. And that's how you find yourself feeding and watering and watching a tree get farther and farther away from any kind of pleasing design aesthetic, while at the same time going, just get your feet back up underneath you and we'll do something in a little while. What we'll do in a little while is we're allowing this to be our only game in town. We're allowing this to continue to be our only game in town. It's making a lot of buds because we're watering the tree right and we're feeding it. I had used the term fuse about these two. I don't actually think that they're going to fuse, like picture 2 water droplets and then they fuse into 1 water droplet. That's probably a wrong word. What I think is if I let that continue to happen, those 2 apexes there will roll over one another. You know, take a cross section of that years from now, and you would still see 2 dots in the center where all the rings would radiate from. I don't think that would become an oval, ring. So that's kind of what I meant by fuse. They would just kind of roll over one another. If one of them were a solid object and the other were alive, then the living one would roll over the solid object. But since how they're both living, they'll both meet one another halfway and just kind of start this and just kind of start this merger as far as we're looking. But inside, I think there'll probably always still be two tops, two apexes. Yeah, and that's my lesson about watching the energy on a tree that seems to have an abundance of energy. Don't get hysterical and think that you can just start doing stuff. We worked on these trees yesterday. We did a lot of work a couple of days ago. This started because I was watching Evan at Underhill Bonsai in Folsom, Louisiana. It's an interesting place, Folsom, Louisiana. There was a person there who used to get, I used to notice it was somebody in Folsom that sold very, very rare exotic motorcycle parts. And I'm like, how in the heck did that thing end up in Folsom, Louisiana? But they were constantly bringing out what you would consider holy grail if you were a collector. And anyway, that's a long story short. I have a history of appreciation of things going on around Folsom. They're also known for their pin down there. You end up on the road gang in Louisiana, Folsom may be your home. But it's also the home to Louisiana's premier bonsai source, and they grow a lot of bald cypress and other varieties too. But Evan, like me, really gets into like a lot of us, really gets into the bald cypress and has quite a few of them. This size, smaller. And he was talking about, he was gotten into doing a lot of pruning, and I thought, yeah, we need to get in there. Out of all the work we did on our trees last year, this one was the one that I wasn't as happy about. This roll over here had fluted out to where it did. It looked like a vase with a fluted edge. It was way out here. So by cutting that down and by taking this edge now inside, what'll happen here is this part, it'll roll over here and that'll be high. So I could take that down more, but the rest of it, instead of rolling over and getting higher and higher as it tries to crawl over a ridge, I cut any ridge off. So the rollover should be more directional towards the center. Accidentally did that just right on that one. Accidentally did that just right on this one. This one responded in a way that meant that I needed to go back in there. Also, this is what it looks like. This is what it looks like when we can get in there up close and personal and see what we did. Also, these little buds are kind of sawdusty colored, but this little tree is, it's busting out with the stuff. It's ready to go. It's a warm day and they're all getting really ready to go. We should be looking at some foliage on these guys within 2 weeks, I'd say. That's Goddess. That's a quick, okay, our Fukin tea. Our Fukin tea. I didn't decide to grow a Fukin tea. It found me. It kind of followed me home. And I love the tree. I love the roots. And it blooms. I like the little white flowers. It's blooming right now. So, yeah. What is that white stuff? If I got aphids right there, I'm going to go back in there and see what that is. Little white stuff right up here. Right there. Center of frame right there. This has been rewarding. Like I said, I know people who really like Fukin teas. I didn't have I didn't have an opinion of them one way or another. I think that's okay. I don't think that's anything. Well, anyway, I'll name it and make sure. Okay. And I saw the foliage somebody at our nursery at work had noticed that the foliage had died on this guy, and they put it off to the side and watered it. And because it didn't have any foliage on it, I saw the trunk and the roots. Otherwise, I'm not in the greenhouse that much. I'm busy. So when I saw that, I went, "Ooh, if it lives, I might be interested." And it lived, so I waited until it looked perfect and asked the boss what it would take for me to bring that home. He made me a killer offer, and I brought it home and slip potted it in here. It rewarded me by blooming. So far, The thing I've heard about Fucantees being a pain, I haven't seen. It might just be Alameda, but it seems to like it here. Okay. Like and subscribe if you guys haven't already. Our next drop will be probably midweek, Wednesday, when Pat recovers a little bit from her mid-work week, and we come out here because we can't help it. We have to, and do bonsai videos. I appreciate you. Frida appreciates you. I hope you enjoyed our sunny look at our trees and some of the projects that we've been working on in the last couple of months, and how they're looking now. Yeah. Thank you all. Thank you all so much for watching.